different ways. Well, there's more than three, but there's three main ways that people travel Vietnam, and I'm going to discuss them really quickly here in this video. So basically, the first way to travel, and possibly the most popular one with travelers, is biking Vietnam. So biking Vietnam is probably one of the best ways to experience the country. You can either start off in Hanoi or Saigon, aka Ho Chi Minh City, but I find it more difficult to call it Ho Chi Minh City because it's long-winded and everyone refers to Ho Chi Minh as like the former president, so it's just easier to call it Saigon. That was a bit of a long-winded description as to why I call it Saigon, but anyways, moving on. So most people, either start in the capital Hanoi. I always mix those two up together as well, like it's just, you're gonna have to bear with me. So basically Hanoi and Saigon. So most people actually start off in Saigon and they bike all the way up to the north to Hoi An, Hanoi. There are two different ones. Hoi An is in the middle and Hanoi is the capital, and I mixed them up. It is brutal, I know. Anyways, so you buy a bike. Basically it's between $200 to $300 and you bike the entire length of the country, which is awesome. It looks like the most amazing experience. And you can either buy the bike off a fellow traveler. There are always people selling outside of the hostels in the big cities. They're selling their bike, you know, they know someone's selling a bike. Literally, we've come across so many people selling bikes, it's ridiculous. And then there's also bike shops all around that sell bikes, and you can buy one of them. So basically, you're gonna break down a lot because it happens to everyone. You're gonna have to get it fixed along the way because everyone has to get it fixed along the way. There is no smooth riding unless you're gonna pay for a really expensive bike, and I'm not even entirely sure if there is such a thing that you could buy without like paying a lot of money for it. So that being said, I think it's one of the coolest things you could possibly do when traveling, and they do drive like maniacs, and that's probably the reason why we didn't do it. We didn't think of biking Vietnam, we didn't think everyone done it. Everyone does do it, and we did have the time, but they were maniac drivers and it probably was really dangerous, and I can't drive to save my life, so we probably would have crashed and died. So we left it because, well, you know, that's that. So that moves me on to the second way that you can travel, and it is the way that most people travel if they don't rent bikes, and that is by bus. And when I say bus, I mean sleeper bus. Now, the sleeper buses they're okay. They're not the most appealing, and they are dangerous. The bus drivers are terrifying, but all drivers are terrifying. So there's really no safe way to travel unless you're going to pay for flights everywhere, because the bus drivers are crazy. So we heard a lot of crazy things when we were in Vietnam about all the buses crashing and that the drivers take certain drugs to keep them awake, and there's literally a crash every week with those sleeper buses. They're so dangerous, and it's something you try not to think about when you're getting on one of them, that, you know, the statistics of you dying or being in a bus crash are ridiculously high. But again, you try not to think about that kind of stuff. So we took a good few buses after we got to Da Nang, which was our second port of call after Hoi An, Hanoi. Oh, dear God. Anyways, maybe I should make a video on the difference between saying Hanoi and Hoi An. Hanoi, the capital, and then we flew down to Da Nang, which takes me on to my third way of traveling, and that is by flight. And the reason why we flew was, number one, we were at the beginning of our travels and we heard horrible stories from the sleeper buses. Actually, one of the stories we did hear was when we were in Saigon about two buses crashing into each other and killing 9 people. And the tour guide that was giving us a tour started laughing about it. He just was like, brought it up so casually, be like, did you hear it? And we were like, no, that's awful. And he was like, oh, it happens all the time. And we were like, okay, so glad we're leaving Vietnam and we don't have to take any more of those buses. All in all, Vietnam's an amazing country and I loved it so much, but the transport was crazy. But yeah, so we flew from Hanoi to Da Nang, which is roughly near the middle of the country. I would say I'm not probably really geographically incorrect, but I'm gonna say it's about the halfway point. So we flew because we did not want to take a 17 hour sleeper bus all the way down. And the sleeper trains are actually $40 and they are meant to be really uncomfortable and just not a nice experience. They are safer than buses, but they're not meant to be a nice experience. So we said we would skip it because we took the sleeper trains in Thailand and they were a lot cheaper. They were alright, like I mean they weren't the nicest experience, but sure, you gotta do what you gotta do. So we flew. Moral of the story. We flew with AirAsia, which is probably the Ryanair of Asia. Their flights are super cheap, and their internal flights within every country in Asia is dirt cheap. So yeah, AirAsia, definitely recommend flying with them if you're flying anywhere. Do not go with Tiger Air. That is a completely off the topic, but Tiger Air rip you off. AirAsia, all the way. Make sure you sign up for Flyer Miles too, because you could end up getting like a free flight out of all the flights that you take with AirAsia. Anyways, we flew to Da Nang. Our original protocol was Hue, but Hue doesn't have an airport, and Da Nang is about 3.5-4 hours away from Hue, so we just took a bus up there after we went to Da Nang. Yeah, which it ended out working in our favour, because the girl I was travelling with, my friend, she got really sick the last day we were in Hanoi, and yeah, had we have had to take a bus, it would just not be great. So at least she only had to endure like an hour-long flight rather than a 16-hour-long sleeper bus. And also, actually, I don't think I mentioned with the buses, their whole mentality is you get there when you get there. Like, we will be driving and they would stop randomly for like an hour and a half in the middle of nowhere, like to something that you wouldn't think was a restaurant or a store, and the bus driver would take a nap, chill, have food, and he'd be like, yeah, just hang around here. So you're stuck in the middle of this valley in the middle of Vietnam somewhere, and you're just like, great, this is awesome. So yeah, I mean, we arrived one time in Nha Trang at 5 a.m. in the morning. They told us we would be there early in the morning, and we were like, what's early? And they were like, we don't know. You get there when you get there. And we were like, okay, awesome. And it turned out to be very early. It was 5 a.m. So we were actually able to check into our hostel at that time, thank God, because it was a 24-hour reception. But had we not been able to do that, we would have been hanging around Nha Trang at 5 a.m. in the morning. It would have been awesome. Yeah. Buses are not fun. Flights all the way. Anyway, so that is the lowdown on 3 of the best ways to travel Vietnam. Bus costs around anywhere from $5 to $14, and the flights are likewise about $20 to $40, which is handy. Trains are super expensive, don't take them. And yeah, enjoy your trip to Vietnam.